Thank you so much for inviting me. I am so happy to be here. And hey, everyone who's joined us, I'm so happy. I gotta tell you, Passover is a tricky holiday for us pastry chefs. So I really hope you're gonna love this pavlova. So the way we're gonna do this is actually I'm gonna make the pavlova, the actual meringue, and we're gonna put it in the oven. And then we're gonna make some stuff to go with it. Now, this pavlova you can actually make a day in advance. You can make it the day of. You can really play around with it. What we're gonna make that's gonna come with our pavlova is we're gonna make a strawberry jam, sort of like a strawberry marmalade, and then we're just gonna make this beautiful whipped cream. We're gonna fold some of the jam into the whipped cream, and we're gonna fill our pavlova with that and with some fresh berries. It's gonna be delicious. It's super, super simple. So the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna turn on our ovens. Now, I don't know if you guys are actually baking with us, but I am gonna turn my oven on. Now, I have the degrees here in Celsius and Fahrenheit. Since I'm in Tel Aviv, I'm gonna turn my oven on to 135 degrees Celsius, but for you Americans, it's gonna be 275 Fahrenheit. So I'm gonna do that. Now, you don't wanna use turbo for that, I don't know, or a fan. Maybe a fan is a better word for that. You want it just to be like regular heat.
So not a convection setting, just a regular at 275 degrees Fahrenheit.
Thank you. Not a convection. That's what I meant. Absolutely. So
if you watch a lot of Great British Baking Show like I do, then you know the European and Canadian way of speaking about baked goods. So I highly recommend to just become obsessed with Great British Baking Show.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm used to both, so it's fine. So now my oven is heating up and we can start making our meringue. So this is like really, really simple. Here are our ingredients. So for my meringue, I have obviously egg whites. I think it's about 5 eggs here. We're talking about 150 grams of egg whites. I know that grams can be tricky for some of you, but for these kinds of things, a scale is your best friend. About 5 eggs. I have a pinch of salt right here. I have some sugar. When I say some, I mean a lot. I have some vinegar. I have some cornstarch, and you can add some vanilla or some liquor if you want to. So I'm going to use my stand mixer bowl and my whisk. And if you want, you can also use a hand mixer, but from very tough experience, I would not recommend you to whisk this by hand. Your muscles will hurt. That's all I can tell you. So again, a hand mixer or stand mixer, that's fine. I'm just going to put my egg whites right in my bowl. And I'm going to put my pinch of salt right in there as well. Now, I'm not adding my sugar yet. I want to start by whisking this until it starts to actually look like foam. Like it's not going to really be stiff yet, but it's really going to be like foam. So I'm just going to show you. So I'm using actually medium speed.
Hey, Lior, we have 2 questions. One
Absolutely.
is, could you use potato starch instead? And the other one is there a particular, is your temperature in your kitchen a particular, do you have a room temp recommendation?
What's the temperature? Okay, so about the potato starch, I would assume yes, it shouldn't be a problem. I usually use cornstarch just because I do. But the concept here is to just add a certain starch to like paste it together. So I would assume a potato starch would also work. And temperature wise, well, this is Tel Aviv. It was really hot this week. I have the air conditioning on, so it's about, I mean, it's like room temperature. I don't want to confuse it with Celsius temperatures, but the egg whites were out in room temperature for about 30 minutes before we started our class. But it can definitely be in the refrigerator waiting for you. I always keep my egg whites in a container in the fridge, And whenever I need to, I use them. So like whenever I bake something and I have some egg whites left, I just put it in a container and I make sure that it's really closed, like sealed, and I put it in the fridge, and I can use it whenever I want. So that's my golden, like, rule. See, we have a lot of questions. Wow.
Okay, so
Right?
just as a note, there's some questions about kitniot. So according to the conservative movement in the United States, a
Okay.
kitniot is allowed. That doesn't mean that you need to. That doesn't mean that you need to eat it. But I don't think we can make blanket statements to say that most American Jews do or don't eat kitniot. It's obviously a very personal choice. So you can use another starch in place of the cornstarch. That being said, you can also use cornstarch. It is a personal practice. It is not halacha. Okay, I don't want to get caught up about the starch issue because we want to watch Lior make this beautiful pavlova. So if there's any other questions, let's see. Do you chill the bowl before beating?
Yeah. So the bowl before beating was just the eggs and the salt. I'm going to show you what I have right now. Well, I don't actually have a lot going now. I wanted to like start foaming just a little bit. And then I'll show you what it looks like. Like I really want it to be white. I don't want to see yellow egg whites when I start actually adding things. And the one thing that I forgot to actually mention here is a 1/4 cup of cold water. So I'm just going to take care of that right now so that I don't forget. I have cold water right here. And what I'm going to do once my foam actually starts to happen is I'm going to add my cold water, and then I'm going to add my sugar. Now this is about 1 cup of sugar. That's a lot. And then after we add the water and the sugar, we're actually going to speed it up to a high speed and actually let it whip until it's really a stiff kick, and I'm going to be able to hold it above my head and it's not going to spill. And that's how we usually know that a meringue is ready, unlike whipped cream that you never should actually put it up like above your head. But I think I'm going to show you what it looks like when I hold it above my head. So in the meanwhile, what we can do, so we have our oven heating, we have like everything going on. It's really, really great. So what I have right here is I have a baking sheet and I have a baking paper. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to draw a circle right here at about the size of what I want my pavlova to be. And then I'm going to flip it over so that I don't have ink touching my food. And then that's going to be like my mark. Now, on the recipe, I wrote 6 inches, but it can be slightly larger. What you should know is that the pavlova grows a little bit in the oven. So I wouldn't go like as far as, you know, the width of your baking sheet. I would go somewhere between 6 to 8 inches. So I'm going to actually draw a circle right here. Now you can use a pan, like a round pan to do it. You can actually use a ruler, but I know what 6 inches approximately looks like. So that's about it. Can you see that? Ish. All right,
Yeah, you could see it was a little hard at first.
Oh, okay. So I'm gonna bring it closer.
That's good.
Okay, good. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna flip it over. Now, this may sound like common sense, but you know, the first time I did it, I did not flip it over. So I'm saying that. So that's where I'm gonna actually dump my meringue when it's done. So I'm just gonna set that aside for now. But you don't want to skip that part just because it really makes your life easier once you actually shape your pavlova. So I'm gonna check what it looks like in the mixer bowl. All right. So I hope you can see that. There's like a beginning of foam right here, but I want it to be a little more stiff. So I'm actually gonna turn the speed up just a little bit. And I want to get rid of the watery consistency. So I just want it to be a little more stiff before I add my water and my sugar, and it's going to take like a couple more minutes. And you know, the rule of thumb here is the faster you go, the less stable your meringue is. You kind of want to take your time on that. I had a chef that says like barbecue. You want to go slow, like barbecue. No, I'm not big on barbecue, but I'm sure he knows what he's talking about. So that's about that. Do we have
Somebody
any
wants to
questions?
know if you could talk about like where pavlova comes from. I don't know what tradition it comes from.
Yeah. So funny story. Comes from Australia, actually. There was a dancer. I think she was Russian, but don't, if maybe she was from the Ukraine. And her last name was Pavlova. And I think it was in the 80s. She came to I think she toured Australia. And as a show of respect, one of the places she went to, Anna Pavlova, thank you so much. And the shape of the dessert was actually an homage to her skirt, to her tutu skirt. So that's where it comes from. When I actually posted it yesterday on my Instagram, someone says, that's our national dessert in Australia. So it's a really big thing for Aussies. And I was really surprised to see how many people love pavlova. When I actually tested it, I had a person here in a workshop who was born in Australia, and he was really moved. And everyone were like, "Let's get some more pavlova." They weren't even listening to me. Like, it was just so funny. So yeah, that's where it comes from. It comes from the 80s, basically.
That actually makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Two questions. I think we talked about this before, but should you chill the mixing bowl before beating the eggs? And somebody else wants to know, could you reduce the amount of sugar?
So chilling the bowl is not necessary. You can just use it as is. Make sure that it's really clean. And I would say make sure that it's dry. Although if I'm totally honest with you, my mixer wasn't dry since I cleaned the bowl like 20 minutes ago. So that's fine. Water is fine as long as it's clean. Room temperature is fine. If it's really like hot from your dishwasher or from cleaning it, then yeah, let it rest for a few minutes. But if it's room temperature, it should be fine. And about sugar, now this is a really sensitive issue that comes up almost every workshop. But here specifically, it's even more sensitive because the sugar that we use for this meringue actually has a chemical purpose. And if we reduce the sugar, our meringue is not going to hold as well as we want it to be. So this would not be a good recipe to reduce the amount of sugar at. Whenever it's possible, I'm all for it. I usually try to give out recipes with like the minimal amount of sugar that is also like delicious and it doesn't ruin the chemical purpose of sugar. But here I would really recommend don't reduce it. I'm gonna check and see what's going on in my mixer bowl. Oh yes, now this is what I want. Okay, so this is what I was talking about, Willis. See this beautiful foam? Okay, so obviously I'm not gonna, hold this above my head since it's not ready, but this is what I want. Like, I don't have any more of this watery looking egg whites. And now I can start adding my cold water and my sugar. Now what I'm gonna do is, can you actually see my mixer and me? Yeah?
Yes, in the corner.
Okay, so I'm gonna do it like as visible as I can. So what I have here, I have my mixer working on a medium high speed, and it's still working. Like, I'm gonna let it work, and now I'm gonna take my quarter of a cup of water, cold water, and I'm gonna slowly pour that in. Now, don't be afraid. I know it sounds weird to pour water into your egg whites, but it's not gonna ruin it. Just make sure you go slow. And this is actually a very small amount of water, so really don't be afraid. I'm almost done, and there we go. All of my water is in there. It doesn't look different right now. It looks just as it did 30 seconds ago when I showed it to you. And now I have my sugar right here. Now I'm gonna add my sugar in addition because I don't want all of the sugar to just go to the bottom of my bowl. I want it to be able to mix thoroughly. So I'm just gonna start with adding little by little. It could be like adding a little bit, waiting for a few seconds, adding for a little bit. I just don't want to pour it all in at once. And then after I'm done adding all my sugar, I'm going to turn it to the high speed, and I'm just going to let it mix so well that it's like, that I can hold it above my head and it doesn't spill. And I'm almost there with my sugar. Okay, I'm done with my sugar, and now I'm gonna turn this speed up. And I'm actually mixing this in the highest speed right now.
For about how long is it going to mix at that high level?
We're talking about like a couple of minutes. Because my foam is already formed, I just want my meringue to be like super stiff right now. And I would say like maybe even 30 seconds and it's there. What you're gonna see is you're actually gonna see your whisk leaving marks on your meringue. That's like a really good sign. Like you see that as it turns in the beginning, it doesn't really leave a mark. It just turns. And now you can actually see that it leaves a ribbon or a mark, and I'm going to show you exactly what it looks like when it's done. But I think my tip for you at this point is don't leave the room. Like don't go too far. Like
could you overbeat them? Could they be too much at a certain point?
Yeah, that's why I wouldn't leave the room.
Okay.
So like up until this point, you could, do your laundry, go grocery shopping. No, you didn't, and not all that, but you could do other stuff. And now that you have this at a high speed, I would really want to take a good look and make sure that I don't over whip it. Now, I want to be really clear about this. It takes a while to over whip a meringue, and we want it to be really, really firm. So it's gonna need a long, like, don't be afraid. It's not gonna happen in seconds. But yeah, I'm gonna check what it looks like in just a few, and we're gonna see if it's ready to come out. And then we're gonna fold our vinegar in there and our cornstarch or whatever starch it is that you want to use, and your vanilla or your liqueur, and we're gonna shape it, which is the best part.
So, Lior, I think I'm gonna have to make this for Passover this year.
Right?
I think so. I think it's gonna have to happen.
I think it will. I see I have a little bit of sugar right here on the side, so I'm just gonna give it a little help because I want it to be like all in.
So we did have one question about sugar that came up from my friend Eva, who wanted to know, since the sugar is important in this recipe, could you replace it with coconut sugar or maybe even Splenda?
I did not use that. I did not try a substitute. So a lot of times I hear from people that they use it and it works really, really well. But since Passover is like a few days away, if you're going to make it for the Seder, if you have time, test it. If it works, perfect. Yeah. But I want you to look at this.
Wait, hold it up. I gotta take a picture. That's awesome.
Right? Now I want you to look at this baby. And I'm gonna, I promised you guys something. So there you go. Did I promise you or did I not? Everything stays in the bowl. That's what you want. That's like a pretty good indication, I think, if you ask me. So good, we got our picture. That's like the most important thing, Shannon.
Yeah,
so
obviously.
That's how we know that it really happened.
So okay, that's it. Class is done. We got our photo.
Thank you so much for joining. So I don't like to waste. So I'm really like using every little bit of meringue. I'm going to put it back in there. You don't have to obsess about this like me, but I come from restaurants, and in restaurants, waste is really, really bad. So I'm going to try and actually use all of it. But like I said, don't obsess about it. Just give it to your kids or your grandkids and they can lick this. This is the most delicious thing in the world. So there we go. That's why I'm not going to lick this, because it's just, it's a rabbit hole, basically. So 2 more things or 3 more things we need to add. First is our vinegar that I'm going to fold in there. And now I actually made a batch earlier and I did not sift my starch in there. So I'm going to sift it now, because otherwise it's just going to be a lump So that's another tip for me to you. You need to sift your starch. And now I'm using a rubber spatula and I'm just folding it in. I did not use all of my starch yet. I just added my vinegar and I started folding my starch in, and now I'm gonna slowly sift and fold some more of my starch in there. And like I said earlier, the starch is all about stabilizing, I don't know, making sure that this meringue really holds while it's baking. Because I don't know if you guys want me to bore you with this, but in the world of meringue, we have 3 different types of meringue. What we did right here is called a French meringue. It's the simplest of the meringues, and it's the least stable of the meringues. Now we could go and make like a Swiss meringue, which is the more stable one, but you know, that involves like a thermometer and cooking stuff. And the whole idea of this recipe is that it's super, super simple. So we're not gonna do that. We're just gonna help it. So I added all of my starch in there, and you can see this is beautiful. This is like the most beautiful thing in the world. Oh! And now for the fun part. What I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna give you a better angle. And let's see. There we go. I'm not as important right now. The most important thing is this. So what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna dump this whole thing right here in the center of this circle that I drew, and it doesn't have to be perfect, not at all. Just has to be like a amount of meringue. And that's it. No, that's not it, but it's almost it. So I am gonna use an offset spatula, which is this little fella. And I love using an offset spatula for the shaping just because it's really easy to work with. You can use a spoon if you want. You can use a regular spatula. You can really use whatever it is that you feel comfortable with. But I'm going to start by shaping this into like kind of like a mountain, and we're kind of going to give it afterwards a volcano shape, because as much as the pavlova resembles a skirt, it also kind of resembles a volcano filled with all kinds of good stuff. So the pre-shape is not as important, just trying to make this beautiful like igloo type thing. And now I have it. I love this part, I really do. And now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pull this upwards, and I'm just gonna go in a circle to create my final skirt shape. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna try and show this to you. I'm actually gonna come from right here, and I'm gonna pull upward. And then I'm gonna come from up here, and I'm gonna pull upward. And you're gonna see it in just a second. See that beautiful shape?
So that when this bakes, is it going to be that tall, or is it going to flatten out a little bit?
It's going to flatten out a little bit, and it's going to get quite wider.
Okay.
I have a surprise coming up. I'm going to show you the one that I made earlier, and then you're going to see about how big it's going to get.
So we had one question, but I see a question from Lisa, and I can answer this one for you, Lisa. Yes, you could chill coconut cream and then whip that up for the whipped cream part instead of a dairy cream. Absolutely.
I did not know you could do that.
Yes. Yeah.
So you keep it like in the fridge and then you whip it?
Yes.
That's amazing.
You just take the cream off the top. Just like that heavy, very thick part, and then that's what you whip up.
Thank you. That's a really good tip. I usually use when I need to make it parve, I usually use the vegetable cream. But that does sound better. So what I'm gonna do to like finish up the shape is I'm gonna kind of make this sort of, it's not exactly like a hole in the top, but it's kind of more flattened. And that is what's gonna even out in the oven, and that's where we're gonna fill this pavlova. So just like, see what I did here? This is it, pretty much. And it doesn't have to be perfect. It just needs to like resemble a skirt and have a flat top, because the top is, that's where we want to fill it. So you don't want to work too hard for the filling part. You just want to be able to put your filling on top and just like decorate it with fresh fruit and powdered sugar and anything that you want. And now, just as it is, we're gonna put this in the oven. Now, I thought I was gonna use this paper cloth, but I'm not. I'm gonna put this in the oven, and I'm gonna explain about the baking as we make our strawberry marmalade. So this goes for an hour in the oven. Don't worry, don't worry. I remind you, I have a pre-baked pavlova. So I'm gonna give you the better angle again. And so I'm going to talk about my strawberry marmalade, and then we're going to go over the baking for this baby. So while this is in the oven, I have some strawberries here. I know that strawberries in the States are a summer fruit, but we have them all winter long. You can use whatever berries you like or whatever fruit you like. We have some really beautiful strawberries and blueberries right now, so that's what I'm going to use. For the marmalade, I'm using just strawberries just because blueberries are really expensive here, and I prefer use the fresh blueberries on top. But you know, if you have like really great blueberries that you can buy for a better price, you can add them as well. And what I'm gonna add here is my sugar for my marmalade. Think it's like
Lior,
that.
we have a question
Yeah.
about when you add the vanilla.
Okay, so I did not add vanilla on mine, but you add it when you add the vinegar and the starch.
Okay. And for Ian, who asked, can you use frozen fruit? The answer is probably yes, right? You can use frozen fruit.
Yes, absolutely. Especially for this part, for the marmalade, absolutely. This is, you know, whatever you would use to make jam or marmalade is fine. I would use fresh fruit on top as well, just because it's fun and delicious. So what I have right here is my strawberries and my sugar. Just gonna mix it together. Now, I know that some people love to let their strawberries and their sugar sit for a while. I do that too sometimes. Like, you can let it sit for about 30 minutes, and in that time, your strawberries will actually let some water out and might make your cooking time faster. It's a matter of choice. And you can also add like 2 tablespoons of lemon juice. I'm not gonna do it at this point, but I just mixed it with my sugar. And now I'm gonna put it on my stove. Let me see if you can see my stove. So I'm gonna put it on a medium heat. And you wanna be careful.
Sue
Yeah.
shared that Australians drizzle passion fruit syrup over the top and decorate it with berries, kiwi, and other beautiful fruit. That sounds very beautiful and delicious.
Delicious. And I know that sometimes people also use like a lemon curd, which also sounds delicious. Any kind of citrus curd can be really, really good here. And I don't know about you, but we have some really, really nice oranges and blood oranges right now, and beautiful Mayer lemons, and you know, anything that you like can really work here. And if you have passion fruit, that is just, it's really gorgeous. It's delicious, but it really looks good. And the idea here is for our filling to be super, super easy. Like, that's what we're going for. So with making your jam, you want to be super careful because we don't want our strawberries to caramelize. I'm going to show you an example. Let me see if you can actually see the strawberries here. Kind of stiff, but I actually have a pre-made strawberry marmalade, and I don't know if you can see, but the color is still very red. So we really want to keep it red and not brown. So I'm going to start at a medium heat, and then I'm just going to lower it, just going to let it sit and do its thing until my strawberries soften. So cooking this thing can be anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour, but I wouldn't go for more than an hour, because that's really when your strawberries will start to caramelize. So I'm just going to show you right now. My sugar is almost melted completely. And I'm going to lower my heat right now. And I'm just going to let it sit at a low heat, and I'm going to mix it every few minutes just to make sure that it doesn't burn or anything like that. So, any questions for now?
No one has asked yet, but I would be remiss if I didn't ask. You guys know what I'm going to ask. Can you freeze it?
Ooh, that's a really good question. And I am the queen of freezing stuff, but unfortunately, this is not one of those desserts that you want to freeze in advance. It's a shame, I know, but it's kind of sensitive. You can make it a day in advance, but I wouldn't freeze it just because it won't hold its shape like you want it to be, like this beautiful, like, okay, so another thing that you need to know is that the shape can be also, it can crack a little bit in the oven, and it's a little sensitive even after you bake it, but that's fine. Like, that's the nature of the beast. It's okay if it crackles, it's okay if it spreads, it's okay if it opens a little bit. Like, it's always going to be beautiful.
Can you share again how, like, this is the kind of dessert you can make the pavlova part like a day in advance and then assemble it when you're ready to serve, or what's the right timing would you suggest?
Okay, so that reminds me, I did not talk about baking it. So I'm gonna say a few words about how we're gonna bake it, and then we're gonna talk about assembly, which we're gonna do actually in just a few. So baking it at 275 degrees Fahrenheit for 1 hour. And then we're going to reduce it to 250 degrees Fahrenheit for another 45 minutes. Then what you're going to do, so it's an hour and 45 total. And then we're going to turn our oven off. And now we can leave our pavlova in our oven, in our turned off oven, for anywhere from 1 hour to overnight. So you could actually make this in the afternoon or in, whenever, and then just leave it there, go to sleep, and it's going to keep on drying out. And then you can take it out of there, leave it out even for a few hours, and you can decorate it and then serve it. Now, I would assemble it right as you want to serve it, because it will moisten your meringue. And that's why we're keeping it really, really simple. So we're going to make our marmalade in advance. We're going to let it cool. And then the only thing we're going to do when we assemble it is we're going to whip our cream. We're going to fold some of our marmalade in there. We're going to put it on our pavlova or in our pavlova. We're going to decorate it with some fresh fruit. And I like to use blueberries and strawberries also, because you don't need to work really hard. You can actually just put them as they are. You don't have to start cutting it in a certain way. They're just beautiful the way they are. Raspberries work here, blackberries work here, all that beautiful stuff, and a little bit powdered sugar, and you're good. So about the time you make tea for your guests, you can just whip your cream and you're good to go. So while my marmalade is baking, I'm actually gonna take my prepared pavlova out of this second oven right here. And there you go. See this beautiful lady? Now, as you like that?
I love it. It's so beautiful. So it does, it spreads a little bit out and it flattens out a little bit. It doesn't hold that full dome shape. And that's okay. That's
Yeah,
what you want.
that's what we want.
Okay.
And this is the kind of dessert that when you place on your table, you know, everyone can just grab their spoon and kind of eat it right out of that central plate. And
That's
it's
nice.
delicious. And it's like even a little bit juvenile. It's really, really fun. And
So we have a
what I
couple
like,
of questions coming in that I want to make
yeah,
sure I get to so I don't forget them. If you leave overnight in the oven, is the oven door open or slightly open? Is it slightly open or is it closed?
that is a really, really good question. So I would leave it closed because I don't want any moisture to enter our oven. And also, I don't want my oven to cool off too fast. So if I'm going to leave it there overnight, I'm going to leave the door closed.
Next question is any tips for storing the leftovers? Which I think the answer is there's not going to be any leftovers, Audrey, because you're going to eat it all. It's going to be delicious.
Yeah, it's so
But if you
delicious.
have leftovers, what do you do with it?
I would put it in the fridge, and honestly, this is going to be your either your midnight snack or what you put on your Passover kosher pancakes the next day.
And then I loved Lisa had a little tip. She said, leave a note on the oven that dessert is in there. And I think that is a very good tip. Make sure nobody turns the oven back on if you have that pavlova, sitting in there.
That is such a good tip.
So Gail, this is a good question. She wants to know, do you need to use the whipped cream? Believe it or not, my husband hates it.
Unbelievable. I've never heard of such a thing. You don't have to use it. It's just such a simple, creamy filling that you can use, but you can also, I think you can, in the States, you can buy a lot of custards that are already made. I don't want to I could give you a custard recipe, but really the basic thought here is how to make this super easy. So you can make a custard or you can buy one and just use that, but you do need some kind of, a creamy filling. Like you don't want to just eat this with berries. You could, but it's kind of dry.
Trader Joe's sells an already made lemon curd. Could you add just lemon curd on top and then some fresh berries?
Honestly, what I would do is I would do the same thing with the lemon curd. I would fold some of the strawberry marmalade in there just because it sounds delicious. And I would use that with the fresh berries and some powdered sugar. That sounds delicious.
Okay. All right. I think we covered it now. Thank you so much,
Okay.
Lior.
Okay, good. So now we're actually gonna assemble this. So what you could do is you can actually transfer this whole sheet to a plate, your serving plate. And then what you can do is you can cut around. I'm actually going to show you because that's what I'm here for. I think this plate might be a little too simple. I'm going to get a bit simple, too small. That's what I meant. I'm going to get a larger plate for this because I have the technology and the plates. Okay. Sorry about that. All right. And then I am slowly going to transfer this onto the serving plate. And I am actually, maybe I can do this like this. There we go. And then I can cut around my pavlova. So I'm not actually removing it from my baking sheet. I'm just kind of using it to make my life easier. And this part you can really do in advance. You could do that earlier in your Seder and just hide it somewhere so that people don't snack on it.
My friend Serene wants to know, can you peel the meringue from the parchment paper?
I wouldn't try to, just because the meringue is super, it's really sensitive, and after going through all this trouble and not having a backup, you don't want it to break. So I would just try to work with this, and then look how pretty it is.
Beautiful.
Thank you. So I wouldn't, like, if you
Lisa
don't
wants
need
to know, could you bake this on a silicone baking mat, like a Silpat, instead of on parchment?
You for sure could, but you would still have to transfer it with your Silpat, because this is so big. It's not like making meringue kisses that you can just peel, or macaroons that you can just, this is so big. I wouldn't want to actually try and peel this from a Silpat and fail. But that's just me, you know. You could also, like, if you're testing it, that you can definitely try.
Somebody wants to know, is the texture of this meringue or this pavlova, when you're eating it, is it sort of dry and crumbly? Is it creamier inside? What's the experience?
It's both. So the outer part is more dry, and then it's like it has this like crisp to it, and crumbly, and then really in the middle it's gonna be really soft and still like a little bit creamy. So you really get a little bit of everything. And also, once we add our whipped cream, it's gonna soften everything, and then your bite is really gonna be a little bit of the soft and a little bit of the crisp, and it's so good. It's just the most delicious bite, texture wise and flavor wise.
All right, I think we covered all the questions coming in for now. Thank you so much, Lior.
Okay, so now let's mix this a little bit. So my strawberries, I just want to show you, I have so much of the strawberry juice coming out. You can see the juice, you can just see the red, but it's coming out, and it has this beautiful red color, like you can see on the actual pot. There we go. Oh, so beautiful. And I'm just mixing it ever so often so it doesn't caramelize. And then this is a matter of personal taste. Like, if you want, after all of the sugar is melted, you can turn it off and just let it cool. If you want for the strawberries to get softer, you can keep cooking it. Really, whatever you choose. Like I said, I have some strawberry marmalade right here. I'm going to use that just because it's already cooled, and we're going to, like, you know, take a few steps just to make this quicker. But when you make it, you can take your time. You can do it a few days in advance. This marmalade can actually stay in your fridge for days, for months. That's the whole idea of preserving fruit. So you can just like do it, forget about it, use it whatever you want. So for the filling, I am going to take, again, my mixer bowl. Forgive me, I have more than one, so I don't need to wash my bowl in like between mixing stuff. And now I'm going to use this paper cloth. I'm just going to make sure that my mixer is dry, room temperature is fine, and I'm just going to add 1 cup of heavy cream in there, and I'm going to whisk this just so that it's nice and stable, and like it doesn't have to be like canned whipped cream. Like, it doesn't need to be super stiff. It just needs to be like to hold its shape a little bit. Just like we did for the meringue, I'm going to start on a medium speed, and then I'm going to see how it goes. And you need to know that cream is a lot more sensitive than eggs. It will curdle. So I want to kind of be there and make sure that it doesn't happen. Because once it's happened, it's just a shame. You can always fix it if you know how to. But it's just the type of thing where, you know, if there's a lot of things going on, you can just tell everyone, yo, leave my kitchen right now. I just need to do this. And, you know, just give me like 3 minutes. Just like when we're braiding challah, right, Jenna?
Yeah, everybody out of the kitchen. I got to focus. Exactly. Here, there was another question that came in, and this is a good one to have your answer on. How do you know when the pavlova is done? Other than that 1 hour and then 45 minutes and then leaving it in the oven, is there a visual indicator? Should it be golden? Tell us what it should look like when we know it's done.
So I don't know if you can see this, but there's an actual like this golden slash pinkish hue to this. Like it's not as white as my meringue was when I put it in the oven. So it gets like this, yeah, this golden pinkish hue. And you can see, I'm gonna show you like, you can see that it crumbles a little bit, like if it cracks a little bit. And when you see this, don't worry about it. It just means that the outer part is baked. And that's about it. I mean, as long as you baked it properly and you let it, you let it at least 1 hour in the oven after you turned it off, it should be fine. Now, I want to say another thing about that. Don't try and take your pavlova out of the oven after, like immediately after baking it. You got to let it to cool in the oven, because if you remove it from the oven after you turn it off, it will deflate. And as you can see, like this has already flattened. So you don't want it to really deflate. You want it, I mean, flatten is fine. It's going to be a beautiful presentation, but you really need to let it cool properly. And then it's going to do its thing, because while it's cooling, it's still baking a little bit. I hope this is a good answer.
Super helpful. Thank you, Lior.
Yeah. Okay. So my cream is almost done. I'm just giving it just a little more speed, and then I'm going to remove it from my mixer. And it's done. Now I am not going to hold this above my head, don't worry. But I want to show you the texture. Okay. So it's not like the stiffest whipped cream, but it's, I would say, about 80% whipped, which is what we want. And then what I'm going to do, first of all, I'm going to bring some of my berries. And I want to just add some of my marmalade in there. Now, I could add it with the whole strawberries or just the juice, and kind of decorate the pavlova after with the whole strawberries. Look at this texture. So gorgeous. I love it.
It's like syrupy.
Yeah, it's like syrupy. So I actually have the whole strawberries, and I'm going to use them to decorate, and I'm going to use some of the juice and fold it in there. And I would say about 2 tablespoons of the juice. And it's okay if a strawberry kind of falls in there as well. That's totally fine. And I'm just going to use a spatula and fold it in there. Now, I keep saying fold stuff in, and it's important because when we're making stuff like meringue or a whipped cream, it's important to not just kind of mix it and just, you know, take out all of the air that we just spent time putting in there. So I'm gonna just fold it a little bit. I love the marbly effect that it has, like the cream and the strawberry. So I'm just gonna fill this right now. Now you can use a small spoon to just make sure that your pavlova is cracked in the right places, but you don't want to go like too far, because as you can see, it will start to break. So I just want to make sure that it's at the same height all over. And then I'm gonna just spread my beautiful marbled strawberry whipped cream. And obviously, if you're using your lemon curd, then it's going to be a beautiful yellowish color on top. So that's even nicer. And then we can use some of that strawberry marmalade, some of those whole strawberries. And I really like to see some of it like drip down from the pavlova. I think it's part of its charm. It's a messy dessert. And then, you know, you can add as much as you want. And then I'll add some blueberries. We have not only beautiful blueberries, but they're huge in terms of what we usually get here in Israel. So I'm just gonna put those on there. As many as you want. You can put some on the side as well, or on my computer, that also works. And then some strawberries. And you can cut the stem or you can just leave it like that. I like to do both just because a strawberry is such a beautiful, beautiful fruit. So just kind of mixing like the beautiful smaller ones, and if you have like the larger, not as beautiful ones, that those I would have. But I would definitely do a mix if you want to, or just use the smaller ones. I have a nice variety of smaller ones, and I would use some to decorate my plate right here. And then the only thing missing right now is powdered sugar. So I'm just gonna grab some powdered sugar and give it like the final touch.
Lior, somebody wants to know if this recipe will work if you double it.
Yeah, it would definitely work. I would make sure that your kitchen facilities are up to it as well. If you have a stand mixer like I do, that's like a 7-quart bowl, then it should be fine. I think I would use 2 ovens to bake it though. I wouldn't want to put like 2 sheet pans in an oven for this. So that would be better if that's an option. Or you can just do one and then do the other. That's another option. Like the one thing that I am concerned about is the oven, and I know that a lot of people in the States have 2 ovens, so if you have 2 ovens, then you're good. Ooh. So final touch, you guys. Just making it snow. So funny because the air conditioning is on here, so it really kind of drifts away. Oh, my favorite part. And I don't like to use powdered sugar on a lot of things, but for this, it just makes it so much prettier. It's unbelievable. I want to show you. Look at this.
It's so beautiful. It's so beautiful. Lior, I'm so inspired. Like I said at the beginning of this class, I said every time Lior makes something, I'm inspired to make it. And as usual, you have done that. I know there were a couple of other questions. I just want to say to the people asking about the recipe, I've linked it a couple times. I'll link it one more time. The recipe for the marmalade is in there. It's both directions, it says for the jam, and then in the directions, it says how to make the jam. So that's the marmalade. That's what she's talking about. She's using
the jam, the marmalade.
Jam. It's the same word. It's synonymous. There was a little bit of confusion about the vinegar. I will go back and look at the recipe today and make sure that the direction for the vinegar and the cornstarch is in there properly. Thank you for sharing that and pointing that out for us. Today was our last class. We are finishing out on a beautiful high note. So many of you joined for many of our classes. We really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Thank you from Buenos Aires. Muchísimas gracias. Let's see, any other questions? This is your last chance if you want to ask Lior to answer any other questions about this beautiful dessert. I am going to share, please, her book just launched. So if you're looking for a beautiful, beautiful cookbook, here it is. I mean, everything Lior does is stunning. So there's the cookbook one more time. Please order it.
Thank you so
I'm
much.
ordering my copy because I'm her biggest fan.
Oh my God. This is what it looks like, by the way.
Beautiful. Congratulations, Lior. Wait, hold it up one more time so I can take a picture. her beautiful, beautiful book, Mazel Tov. So excited for you.
Thank you so
Okay,
much.
so I don't know if you can do this, but a couple of people have asked if you could show cutting. How do you serve the pavlova? Do you cut it? I feel like you said before you just dig in with spoons, right? So yeah.
What I would do, honestly, is either serve this with a bunch of spoons, or I would just, use my beautiful tablespoon, like the one that I really like to serve with, and I'd have people just like spoon on their plates, like you would a
Trifle.
bread pudding. Yeah,
Bread
like
pudding.
stuff like that. Yeah, just not,
You're
your
not cutting
beautiful like
into
cut
it
up.
with a serrated knife or anything like
Yeah,
that.
you don't need to. It's so soft.
So somebody wants to know, this is a great question. Whenever you're baking something with a lot of egg whites, what are you doing with the egg yolks?
Ooh, that's a really, really good question. Now, I gotta tell you, usually in the baking world, I would use more egg yolks than egg whites. That's why I always keep my egg whites. That's how I can do it. So things you can use your egg yolks too. Now, I know it's really problematic because it's Passover, but what I really love to do is canelé de Bordeaux. There's a recipe for it in my book. You can actually freeze the yolks and use it after the holiday. And stuff that you can use for Passover. You can make a creme brulee. There's a recipe on my blog. Egg yolks are beautiful for creme brulee. You can use it to make a pastry cream, a curd. Let me see what
Chocolate
else.
pudding.
Chocolate pudding, yes. All kinds of pudding, any kind of pudding, really.
Pudding, yeah. It's a great dessert to have during the week of Passover too. You could save your yolks for a day or two, and then make pudding for the rest of the week after Seder. If you're gonna freeze your yolks, which I feel like I might have to do this year, well, how would you recommend freezing them? Like in a container or in a Ziploc bag?
Actually, both could work. I don't really have this habit of freezing things in Ziploc bags, but it's probably a really good space saver.
Yeah.
I usually use containers. It's a habit. And then I can just transfer it to my fridge, and then I can just spoon the amount that I want, because
Right.
I use a scale and I know that I know the amount that the egg yolk weighs, so I can just weigh it out. So that's
Audrey
what I
has
would
a
do.
great suggestion. You could
Yeah.
make a hollandaise for veggies or for poached eggs, or you could also make like an aioli if you have egg
Aioli,
yolks.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's such a good idea. That's a really, really good idea. Um, what else? I mean, you can do so many things with egg yolks. That's just,
You can add them to your matzah bread probably too, in the morning.
oh yes, that's such a good idea. Wow. Mayo, yeah. That's
Mayo, yeah.
kind of an aioli, yeah.
Um,
So many things.